Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Legal Tech Week, the show where we talk about the latest happenings in legal tech and innovation with our panel of legal tech journalists and bloggers. I think I fail to say this often, but if you're not always just catching us live, you can also catch the recorded versions in two ways. You can just, we put it out as an audio podcast, and wherever you get your podcasts, you can find it there. And the video is all saved and put up on YouTube at Legal Tech Week channel on YouTube. So just search for Legal Tech Week and you can just binge on all of our past episodes. You could spend an entire year doing that probably. What else would you ever want to do? But today we are probably going to be talking a little bit about ILTACON, much to the chagrin of poor Victor Lee, who wasn't there and he's going to have to listen to us go on about that. But we're also going to get some stuff from Victor as well and talk about that. I'm Bob Ambrogi. I have the blog Law Sites and the podcast Law Next. And our panelists today, starting with Steve Embry. Want to say hello?
Hey, Steve Embry here. Just returned from ILTACON. Got a good night's sleep for the first time in several nights. And I write the blog Tech Law Crossroads, and I'm in Louisville, Kentucky.
And also joining us today is Steve Lerner.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm Stephen Lerner, senior reporter, Law 360 Pulse. I write about legal tech. I have a monthly column called Technically Speaking, and I also just came back from the happiest place on earth, Florida, ILTACON in Orlando as well.
I thought you were going to say Law 360 was the happiest place on earth.
It is that too, sure.
Another happiest place on earth is the American Bar Association, where Victor Lee is just back from.
Yeah, let's go with that. My name is Victor Lee. I am assistant managing editor for the ABA Journal. I missed ILTACON. I had Colin Con, which is my son, was running me ragged this last week. That wasn't why I missed CleoCon, but that is what I'm not CleoCon. That isn't why I missed ILTACON, but that is what I was doing this last week. That and avoiding avoiding certain topics at the American Bar Association.
Okay, yeah, well, and we can talk more about that. Nikki Black.
Hi, I'm Nikki Black. I am the head of SME and external education at My Case and LawPay, and I write columns, legal tech columns for ABA Journal, Above the Law, and other outlets. And I am fresh back from my beautiful view of a pile of garbage at the happiest place on earth. So I think I got a better view now that I'm home, which is good news.
That's good. And last but not least, Joe.
Joe Patrice from Above the Law, also around the happiest garbage on earth, I was going to make a snarky comment about the happiest garbage on earth, but nah. I was going to say it was filled with difficult to cut off ribbons that we all had from the parties we went to, but yeah.
And actually, Steve just reminded me in the chat, we are at, what are we at this week? Like 90, we are about
this
to
is
hit
98.
the 100th episode of this podcast. So this is 98 this week, according to Joe's calculations. I don't think anybody else has actually quite added it up, but we're taking Joe's word for it. And
we're taking iTunes' word for it, because they said there were 97.
All right, perfect, good. So in 2 weeks we'll be 100. We haven't quite figured out what we're doing yet, but we're going to try and do something special for that episode. So stay tuned for that. Watch for that, and you can send your gifts and contributions to me at my usual address. Maybe before we, first of all, Victor, just to kind of follow up on a remark about the ABA, I just noticed Sam Skolnick's piece today in Bloomberg, I think it was yesterday, kind of following up on this issue that in part I wrote about a few weeks ago regarding that op-ed that was in favor of regulatory reform and how it was supposed to run in the Center for Innovation's publication, and then ended up getting pulled. And then Sam Skolnick just wrote a very much more in-depth kind of report on some of the inner debate at the ABA around this issue. I haven't really had a chance to read it in depth or digest it, but maybe next week it's another one we might want to follow up on. I did notice that he said that somebody at the ABA claimed that I did not get it right, and that op-ed was never slated for publication in the first place, which sure as heck wasn't what I was told by people involved in putting out that publication, and wasn't what I saw in some emails that were sent to me. So
Well, it kind of begs the
interesting.
question: why would you write an op-ed in the first place if you weren't gonna?
Well, they had, I will say, they had actually written it and then were shopping it to get it published. So they had already written it and then submitted it to the ABA, and it was accepted by the ABA, is my understanding. So it wasn't, they didn't write it specifically for the ABA so much as they wrote it and then were looking for a place to publish it. But yeah, maybe before we launch into our post-game analysis or post-mortem analysis, or whatever you want to call it, of ILTACON, and bore poor Victor to death with that, we should hear from you, Victor. And what interested you this week in the news?
Oh, I thought you were gonna ask me about what was going on. I was like, I don't know. I mean, okay. What I can say about that topic, I actually don't have any insight into what is going on with that. But what I can say is that this has obviously been an issue that's beguiled the association for a while now. It's still an issue that engenders a lot of passionate response on multiple sides. It's still an issue that really kind of, I don't know if I call it the third rail. Like, it's not, I don't know if it's quite like that, but it is something that if you like, whenever anybody tries to bring it up, it's gonna then generate certain reactions from certain corners. So there is no official view of things. There is no there are factions within the ABA that are very, very much in favor of some kind of deregulation. There are some parts of the ABA that are very much against it. So it's still something that we're struggling with, and it's an interesting sort of microcosm into the profession as a whole, because obviously this is not an issue that this is a very complicated issue that creates a lot of spirited debate, and so that makes us no different than like a lot of the other state bars and a lot of the other entities that are grappling with this issue. It's just obviously we do it on sort of a higher with a higher profile, I guess. But yeah, so the story that I put into the queue was, ironically enough, we're on Zoom now. Zoom has, obviously they've made it clear that they want their workers to go back to the office, because they feel like having a virtual setup, having a hybrid setup is not conducive for productivity, for team building and whatnot. And that's been the news for a while, but I guess this week's like some internal emails leaked, just kind of really kind of emphasizing that aspect of like this. Well, we don't think that interacting on Zoom and working on Zoom is conducive for a cohesive office culture and whatnot. It's like, well, it's kind of ironic coming from you guys, since you were the guys who created this platform. But and if we get kicked off in the next couple of minutes, then we'll know what's going on. But kind of tying into the legal industry, I mean, obviously, we've seen this debate raging on, for a while now, and we have a lot of law firms now that are actually mandating, 4 days back in the office, 3 days back in the office. So this is at what point then does it become okay? Let's just everyone go back. No more hybrid, or very limited amounts of hybrid for people who are like absolutely can't make do without it, or had some kind of arrangement, or aren't or whatnot. But like, yeah, at what point does it then become, all right, well, you know what, everybody come in, we're not going to do any kind of like hybrid arrangements anymore, because it's just easier to have everybody in the office. Everybody sees each other. Everybody, they can have the water cooler talks that are so productive and so conducive to getting things done. And I mean, you see this in all industries, not just the legal industry, but especially in the legal industry, where FaceTime, as we've talked about in the show a lot, FaceTime is very important. Being seen being in the office and working and, you know, pulling the long hours and, you know, paying your dues is still very much a part of the culture. And so, yeah, I do kind of wonder if that's where we're heading. But, you know, it's yeah, and especially now that you have Zoom kind of like letting the cat out of the bag and being like, well, hey, you know what, we don't even want to deal with this. So yeah, so that's just interested me just on a macro level.
I was thinking as you were talking, Victor, we may end up with something worse than we had before COVID. You know, pre-COVID, there weren't any like particular rules. People could, you know, work remotely or be traveling or whatever. And now we may end up with, yeah, everybody come back to the office and you're going to be here these days and we expect you to be here. And it could not only be, you know, back to the office, but back to the office with more requirements and burdens than there ever were, which is kind of ironic.
I
the
just
CEO
wonder-
says it's difficult to build trust over Zoom, so I think we should just like poll the chat and find out whether they trust us or not. I don't know.
I wonder, like, if they talked to their PR team before they made that decision, because that was the dumbest PR decision I've ever come across. It's
Right.
like, it makes them seem like a bunch of hypocritical idiots. But as I've said in past shows about hybrid and remote work, there are tons of people that fare better working remotely. Neurodivergent people, disabled people, people of color, women, people who are caregivers or parents. Like, I think the percentage of people that don't need some sort of hybrid arrangement in order to have their ideal work arrangement is this small minority of people that feel they need to be surrounded by, you know, their underlings that make them feel important. That's mostly what I think, that you are the people that want other people at work, because it doesn't satisfy their egos when they don't have these people there. And I think giving people options, if people understand that you need to have FaceTime to make certain connections, I think they're going to come in there if they think it's imperative or useful for their career. I think you should trust your employees more than force them to do things, but I'm not the one with the big real estate contracts that are outstanding either. So.
Couldn't
Well,
agree with you more, Nikki.
The craziest thing was, we talked about this over the last couple of weeks, this Davis Polk deciding to massively expand their office in light of all this. Like the logical thing would be to get a smaller office, do what you can about like kind of hoteling concepts and so on, to make sure that people have some flexibility. And that is what a lot of the real industry out there does. The fact that law hasn't been doing that has been bizarre.
Well, Davis Polk is massively expanding its real estate, and so did ILTACON this year.
Good segue. That's why you get paid the big bucks, Bob.
You know it.
It wasn't as good as the one that you did. You did a couple. I wish I could remember that one. There was one that you did where we all just kind of went like that. I
They're
don't
recorded.
remember.
They're recorded.
Maybe somebody can go back through the archives and let us know for the 100th episode.
Yeah. Well, when we get our generative AI to go back and find all the word cloud from every episode we've ever done, I like that idea. First, I have to.
I have a
transcribe them all to
prediction.
text,
Sorry, I think artificial intelligence is going to be up there. Why do a word cloud? We've like spoken about that.
Yeah, but that's
so
just
much.
like the last year. What I mean, how about contract lifecycle management and I don't know, whatever
You think
else.
we've said that one a lot? Really? Contract life cycle management. I don't think I've said that phrase in my entire life.
Oh, I just can't stop repeating it. I love it. It just rolls off my tongue. Well, all right. So I know Steve wrote a sort of a after the show post. I know I wrote an after the show post. I'm not sure if anybody else got to write one yet, but I certainly both Steve and I think we're pretty alike in our assessment. This was a pretty good ILTACON overall. I mean, the people I talked to, and sort of people of all ilks, whether they were there as just, as attendees, as vendors, I don't know, whatever other capacity might be there, people seemed pretty happy with the show overall. I mean, the allusion to the real estate for those who weren't there was reference to the fact that rather than just be in the Swan and Dolphin as it had been the last time it was at ILTACON for the most part, it's spread out into a couple of adjoining, not even adjoining facilities, a couple of nearby facilities or hotels that in some cases required people to do a whole lot of hoofing between meetings. I mean, I clocked it at one point, and from the Swan Reserve over to the yacht harbor, whatever it's called, it was about 0.8 miles. So if you had, a meeting at the Swan Reserve and then you had to get over to the other place, you're walking almost a mile, and then you might then have to turn around and walk almost a mile back again to the Swan Reserve, depending on what your schedule was. Meaning we all got our steps in anyway this week.
Yeah, and they weren't.
Go ahead, John,
I was just going to say, and that path was not like a New York Manhattan grid either. They were kind of winding. It took me 16 minutes to do that walk.
Yeah, if you took the wrong turn, it could take a lot longer.
It really, I mean, the biggest problem I think was going from the Swan Reserve all the way over to the yacht club. But most of my journeys were from the Dolphin to the Swan, and actually most of them were from the Dolphin to the yacht club. And they did a nice job with the golf carts on that particular piece of it. I mean, there was always one there and moved pretty quickly. And when I first heard about the golf carts, I was like, oh shit, that's never going to work. We'll be standing out in a heat for 20 minutes. But they rolled pretty fast. And I have to say, I mean, I'm sure if ILTA had its preference, everything would have been in the Dolphin, or at least the Dolphin and the Swan. But, when it comes to planning these conferences, we're really at the mercy to some extent of the facility. So I'm sure that, it was an unfortunate situation, but I don't think ILTA can be faulted, as I'm sure they tried to work it out the best that they could under the circumstances with what the resort was giving them. But so yeah, although the other thing I will point out is, sitting here today, it is about 10 degrees warmer in Louisville than it was in Orlando.
Don't have that problem in Boston.
Well, we hit 100 here in Chicago yesterday. I imagine it probably would have been similar in Kentucky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Steve, you were shaking your head when Steve was talking about the golf carts. Not for you, or?
No. I mean, the golf carts were fine when they were there. I remember I was standing outside the Dolphin just trying to get to, I guess that must have been the yacht club, and there was just a big pile of people. Nobody could go anywhere. The carts were just sitting there. There were no keys to use the carts, and it was just like, if the people are not going to drive the carts to take us to yacht club, why can't we just drive the carts? I mean, it kind of, that's what it kind of felt like. Is I didn't feel like the carts were always there all the time.
Well, and as I understood it, there were 6 carts, and one of the keynotes was over in Yacht Club, at least one of them. You're telling me you're going to get 3,000 people from Dolphin to the Yacht Club on 6 golf carts? Like, come on. I mean, for certain things, even if they worked sometimes, that wasn't going to work.
I really like that idea of letting us all drive the golf carts. We should really suggest that for next time. Especially after some of the parties, that could get really
After some of the parties, that would be fun.
And well.
The bodies flying all over the parking lot.
How many golf carts are going to end up in that little lake there, or whatever that was?
Well, that's because some people had too much fun at those parties.
Some people
No one
did.
wants to comment. Oh, okay. Somebody got it.
On film, apparently.
Somebody got
That's
it.
right too. That's right too. It's all on film. Well, so what about the click things? I mean, again, for anybody in the audience who wasn't there, one of the tech innovations at this year's ILTACON was that every name badge had this little white plastic button thing on it that would sort of randomly flash lights all the time throughout the day. But if you then held it up next to somebody else's little white button and pressed it, it would flash green, and supposedly you were exchanging your contact information, which actually seemed like a sort of a cool idea. The first problem was when it was revealed that they were not that they had failed to tell people when they gave them the badges that if they didn't return the badges, they were going to be fined $50 after the show, which came as a surprise to a lot of people. Apparently, some people were getting told that when they were picking up their badges, but I was not, and I sure heard from a lot of other people who were not told that. And I know I blogged about it after after asking at the press briefing whether this is even true, because I thought it was just a crazy rumor that couldn't possibly be true. And they said, yep, that's true. But there was
Yeah,
that.
so
And then
we would be happy to show you one, except I think all of us dutifully turned our little buttons in.
right.
Nobody was
50
willing to
bucks,
take
50
one
bucks
for
is
the,
50 bucks. I wouldn't need that.
I
well,
look
nobody
forward
was,
to
nobody
LTACON
was,
tag LinkedIn posts where everybody has photos of their fines that have been sent to them.
So this
I
little
was
bit
kind
of
of hoping
technology.
that somebody here would, take one for the team and bring one back to show our all of our viewers what they really
the
look
audience.
like.
I
But
took a picture of mine.
So the weird thing about it was this, like it was one of those features that often happens in the tech space where it was like cool for cool's sake and not really a functional reason. Yeah, you could push this button, hold it next to somebody, and exchange information. That is the same job that the QR readers have done at these conferences for years upon years. But this one was just one that added a threat of $50 to your life. It also, had issues with getting information off of it. At the first day's press briefing, we were told they were working on how you would get somebody's contact information out of the system, since the whole purpose was to exchange contact information. This struck me as a bit of a thing they should have known beforehand. Apparently there's some way to get it out, although
You
it
can
may
just go
not
into
all
the
be
app
there.
now and press. You can go to the app and
Okay.
press download it or something. It'll send you an XLS file.
Though people say that I hear, like we were talking before the show began, that they may not all be there.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
I'm hearing. I've heard that from a couple of people that they've checked it out and not all of the clicks they were doing were getting recorded.
That's
Oh,
a
this
little
is interesting.
alarming. Sorry, go ahead.
A nugget from the chat that
Yeah,
Celine
that's
has
what I was
here is
thinking
that, apparently these did help the organizers heat map potentially, and so see where people were so they could better predict expenses going forward, which would be a great idea. For about $10, they could have paid me to tell them not in the yacht club, but that's
Which means they were in fact tracking us the entire time.
That's also a little alarming. What if you went somewhere that you wouldn't want to be tracked going to? Like, I'm not speaking personally. I didn't do anything sketchy at this conference, but like, it seems a little, you're wandering around with I don't know, what if you spend an hour in the bathroom because your stomach's upset? I don't know. I don't want them tracking me around the conference center. That's
But if you're doing
offensive,
something
if that's
sketchy,
true.
you're not going to wear your ILTA conference badge to it, are you?
I mean, I don't know. I think that they should have disclosed it if they could actually track your location using those, don't you? Am I the only
Yeah,
one
I don't
that is a
know.
little
Would've thought.
offended?
Possibly.
Sorry, go on. No one else felt like they should disclose that or sign off on it. Really?
I don't know, because it was attached to the badge. I didn't think it was all that bad. Like when I decided to go do something awful, I'm sure I would have taken it off. Not that I did, but because I didn't have enough time.
Well, even if regardless of what you were going to be doing, I feel like that's something they should disclose because it strikes me as a violation of your privacy. Or at least you should consent to them tracking your location if that's true. Because that's a very
To be
different
fair,
thing than, here, click this and contact with somebody.
To be fair, maybe they did. I haven't read the fine print on our signing up for it. It could easily be in there. I haven't looked.
Where do we sign anything regarding the clicker things?
I mean, who knows? Like, I would assume when people register, there's like a bunch of, like, I clicked
there's going to
through
be
a
some
bunch
fine
of
print
things.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Probably when
Yeah,
you sign up for
exactly.
got the app, anytime I get an app, there's all sorts of things I agree to that I have no clue what I'm doing with. Because I just want the app.
I guess it's the public defender in me that's a little outraged at that, but I guess I stand alone on that one.
I like the Easy Pass analogy. The Easy Pass for legal tech conferences. Well, all right. What else? I did not make it to too many of the actual panels. I don't know if anybody else did, and I was so busy with meetings that. But again, I the feedback I got from people, and I think Steve, you went to a few. Steve and Steve, I think you both went to a few. What were your take on just kind of the
Well,
panels and the?
yeah, the educational sessions that I went to were pretty good. They focused on sort of practical and use cases. As they weren't like nerdy tech kind of things, at least the ones I went to. And the more interesting ones that I went to, and sort of raises the issue, were the keynotes. Because there were 4 keynotes, and only one of them had anything to do, I think, with technology. The rest of them were sort of, we'll show you how to feel better, reduce stress, and read people's minds.
Yeah.
which were interesting and entertaining. And I wrote in my piece, it's a dilemma for event organizers, particularly in the legal tech space, because so what are you going to do? You're going to get somebody from legal tech. Well, we don't have that many people in legal tech that can carry a keynote. There's a few, but there's not many. Or you can bring somebody from outside legal tech who's just in technology. But what happens often then is you get somebody that doesn't understand legal tech, and everybody comes in thinking they're going to hear something really cool, and they end up hearing something irrelevant. Or you can just go completely outside and go for the uplifting. And that, at least 3 out of 4 times, that's what ILTA did. And the people they brought in were pretty interesting, particularly the mind reader. He was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I just felt like I'm so busy at a conference like that I just to take the time to just like sit and listen to somebody for an hour has absolutely nothing to do with legal tech. Just didn't feel like it was worth my time, and in some ways I feel like it was. I don't know. I'm sure some people just want to be entertained, but I don't know. It just seemed like there's better. There was a comedian every night. I mean, they could go to the comedy session or at nighttime if they want.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the session.
Of course, and we're kind of go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
No, go right ahead, Stephen. I'll let you finish.
I was just going to say we're all kind of jaded because, I mean, we've been through all this stuff before, and like you say, we don't have time to fool with it. But I don't know. I mean, I didn't do a survey, but people that commentary that I heard from the rank and file coming out of them, there's a lot of them seem to be like what they were kind of being entertained with. So I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I didn't check out the keynotes, but I did see the sessions. ILTACON, as always, they have some of the best educational sessions for legal tech conferences. The ones I saw in particular were really good. As long as it was a law firm or someone from a law firm speaking in the session, then it's pretty good educational content. I saw sessions about data success projects, a lot of generative AI sessions, a few of those. Particularly not so much on the technical side of Gen AI, but more what firms should be doing to prepare for it ahead of time, private data privacy issues, but also ethical considerations. So I thought it was really thorough because very educational, but I think that's where a lot of law firms are now. They're still looking at these tools. They haven't made any official decisions. Maybe they're piloting these tools, but they're starting to get their feet into the water, and they need to consider some of these ethical issues at play. So I thought it was really appropriate for these types of sessions at ILTACON. Maybe next year there'll be a step forward at ILTACON. They'll be focused more on practical aspects of the technology. But I thought for this year, given where the state of Gen AI is, I thought they were really appropriate.
The one session I went to was the one on their technology survey. And some of the data from it was fascinating, but I got there a few minutes late because I couldn't find it. And I sat down and apparently promptly tried to break the rule of don't take pictures. And the person next to me is like, no, you're not allowed to take a picture. I'm like, oh, sorry. There's a lot of secrecy around their survey every year, which I think is a little odd. You'd think that they would at least, I don't know, like they take their time releasing the summary, and then they finally release the whole thing. And it's this big lead up, and they won't let you take pictures of the stats on the screen. So everyone's scribbling away madly. I don't really understand the secrecy behind that survey, but it's got lots of really interesting data every year. So I'm looking forward to reading it.
There weren't enough surveys released last week. I think we need more surveys. There were only there was the ILTA Everlaw ACEDS one came out Monday on sort of the state of generative AI in the legal profession, and then the LexisNexis one came out on Tuesday on the state of generative AI in the legal profession, and then Thomson Reuters put out theirs on
Thomson
just sort of
Reuters.
the state of the profession generally, or something that just talked about AI in the legal profession. And interesting. I mean, it's kind of interesting
I
because
don't know.
yeah, well, the Everlaw one was only what 250 respondents or something, or 280, something like that, a small number of respondents, and the LexisNexis one was significantly 4,000 something, if I recall right, or 8,000, I forget.
Yeah.
But international survey, and they had pretty much the same results in terms of how people are thinking about generative AI and what its impact would be on the profession.
Wait, now hold on. There's that thing again. Lerner said this first, and now you AI. What is this? I didn't hear anything about it at the show. So what is this
Custom
tech?
Nick. It's only talked about a little bit, right over your head.
Artificial inanity. I mean that's the other funny thing I thought. I mean, we all talked about this, I think, at various points during the show, because we did sort of function like a pack of wild animals roaming around together at a lot of the show, but I was just struck by, yes, everybody's talking about generative AI, but I was struck by how many companies are talking about products that they have yet to release or even put into beta. There's so many companies are talking about, here's what we're going to be doing over the next year or so, or 6 months or so. And yet they're not even ready to show you a prototype of what it is, let alone something closer to a release version. And I think it's interesting how the companies are all, is exactly what Samina just said. I mean, they're all jockeying to say, yeah, we're doing something. I mean, is that the right approach for companies to take? Should they be touting something that they really haven't refined yet, or should they, I mean, are they doing a service to their customers, or are they really just playing to potential investors or to PR or whatever? I don't know what people think about that.
And well, it's hard for this market. I mean, if you get into the consumer market, that happens a lot. I mean, there's, Apple does it, everybody does it. But the problem with this market is, the buyers in this market, like, we're all skeptical to begin with, right? So you start talking about something that's not there, then you're like, it's all BS then. So the danger is it really is going to do the hype crash because people are promising more than they can deliver, not understanding this marketplace as well as they should.
I think one positive factor is just lawyers are chomping at the bit for this, which is super interesting, because when have they ever been interested in any kind of technology? But this technology, and Bob, I thought your post just really succinctly described what made this conference feel so different. There was this energy and this curiosity about technology, and people sort of really wanting to learn and really excited about the prospects of this thing, no matter who you talk to or what they were coming at it from. And for us, to be in the middle of this thing that just seems like it's really going to be disruptive is super cool. But it wasn't just us. It's interesting. And I think the fact that there's so many lawyers chomping at the bit and so many companies rushing to get these products out is energizing. And it's also just a sign that this is different. It's different than pretty much anything I still agree with Gates. It was the PCs, internet, and then this.
It is different. I thought it was, I used the phrase kind of double-edged sword, because I came into this expecting to have what I think has been the theme of a lot of ILTAs I go to, talking to tech personnel and vendors who all have a meeting of the minds about how to make everything great, and then finding out that the partners don't want to invest in it and don't care and whatever. But they are championing at the bit about this. They do seem excited, or at least some of them seem excited. Some are scared of it, like I expected. But I heard from people that there were lawyers who are like, go out and get me some AI. But the double-edged sword of that is, it's good that they care about something finally. The downside is, it seemed like, at least for some of the folks I talked to, it seemed like they were feeling pressure from lawyers who didn't understand the limits of this technology to run out and try and get this technology, which, be careful what you wish for moment. They care, but they care about doing something stupid.
Yeah, you know, I know, and I noticed the same thing, and I think Steve and I had a discussion about it. I mean, it seems like because the law firms are so eager for this, all of a sudden their IT department, who they never really paid a whole lot of attention to before when it came to technology decisions, all of a sudden the IT department is really important, and we really want them to do something. The flip side of that, as you just pointed out, is so the IT department says there's only so much we can do, and then the lawyer's like, "What? I'm gonna go find me a good IT person then."
Yeah,
There's
and the,
no,
and the,
I
and the
mean, I
demand kind of
feel sorry for those guys. There's no winning.
and the fact that like lawyers want this, that kind of feeds into the whole pressure of like these companies to be like, oh well, we're doing something because they don't want to be then dismissed by these. Like, oh well, we don't even have to look at that company because they're not doing anything with generative AI. Because then they look bad, or they look behind the eight ball. They look like they don't know what they're doing. So it's kind of like you kind of get caught in that position where it's all right. Well, we have to, even if we're not really doing anything, we still have to make it look like we are, because otherwise we're going to get completely left behind by our competitors and whatnot. So I mean, obviously, the field will thin out at some point, but I mean, right now it's kind of like, there's obviously there's an arms race going on with this technology, and it's a matter of who can harness it properly. But then also there'll be a lot of companies that want to look like they're harnessing it properly, and it remains to be seen who's actually going to be doing what.
I think
I don't know if it was illustrative
Jeff,
of how people are talking about AI, but it was funny that if you went to I went to the session, Jake Heller, founder of Casetext, did a talk on kind of on the acquisition, but also just on generative AI and what they built and what it means for the industry and all that. Packed standing room. People were getting turned away. There wasn't enough room to get in to hear him. A couple of hours earlier, I went to the Thomson Reuters overview session, which was, of course, that's the company that acquired Casetext, where Thomson Reuters was going to be talking about its generative AI strategy. And it was like, what, 30 people in the room, maybe, or something, in this huge room. No, well, yeah, it was in the same room where the keynotes were. Yeah, that same room. But
I think day two, everybody was just refusing to go to the yacht club unless they had to.
Yeah.
So I think the people that had their events and stuff like that over there were kind of, out of luck.
Yeah, maybe that was it. I mean, it just felt like it was also just, I don't know, maybe it's more interested in the tangible. Casetext has something. They've proven they've got a product. It's out there. It's being used, and maybe people really want to see more actual, hands-on executions of generative AI versus talk about what we're going to be doing down the road. I think somebody it was Dennis mentioned like net documents in the chat. They've got something now that's real, that with their ND Max product, and they're doing some kind of cool stuff with it. And it's not necessarily sort of knock your socks off super generative AI that's going to do everything a lawyer does. It's just helping lawyers do very practical applications in sort of a low code environment where people can create their own apps using generative AI, and it's a kind of a cool execution of it.
Yeah, if the vendor you're talking to has released their product, but they have not released a code of standards, a code of ethics, any way to talk about the explainability of the output, you probably need to run away. That is a problem. They need to be talking about these issues first, and then come out with these products, even if they're still in testing.
Yeah. I just saw, this is a little slightly off point, but I was just reading, I think, just this morning on the fact that OpenAI has just released this new capability in Chat GPT to upload and train against your own sets of documents. I don't know if anybody saw that, but I mean, this is what actually what some of these legal tech vendors have been touting as their, why their generative AI is better than just commercial generative AI, because it's getting trained against sets of legal documents, and therefore is less likely to hallucinate, more likely to give truthful answers. But if OpenAI just is able to create this kind of an interface where anybody can just provide a set of documents and train it against that set of documents, that could really be a game changer, I think, for some of these big law firms and others that have, DMS systems packed with, years and years of briefs and memos and whatever other legal documents they've generated over the years.
The other thing that was notable about that announcement, if it's the same one that I read, was that it was using GPT 3.5 turbo or whatever, not Pro, and getting really good results because of that limited data set that you provided. It has results that are comparable, but even faster than GPT-4. And that's also more cost effective and, you know, as well. So that was another exciting part of that announcement.
Yeah. A lot of those turbo engines have problems. I can attest to that in my car. What else about ILTACON? Parties? We talk about parties.
So many parties.
There were parties. I didn't see very
And there were
many
pictures. They were
masks
taking pictures
parties.
at those parties. We're told, at least of the media.
I don't think I ate dinner the entire time I was there, because we just started at one party at 5, kept walking to party after party, and they all just had appetizers, and I subsisted on appetizers and alcohol and walking. I walked it all off for sure. But
It's an abundance of riches when it comes to parties at ILTACON. I mean, it's sort of always been that way, but it's interesting compared to some other conferences that try and corral you more into their specific events. And ILTACON certainly has its own events. It has a great, opening night party. And I don't know if anybody stuck around for the closing night party. I did not. But at the same time, just tons of different receptions and other events to choose from. That is, as I wrote my post, I mean, the kind of probably the ultimate one was that I manage after party. That if you walk by the I manage booth at that was like 9:30 in the morning, I think it was. I walked by, and there were people lined up out there to get the little wristbands they were going to need in order to get into that party. And it was packed and loud and a lot of fun for a lot of people.
the park was unprepared for that, because I left early because I had an early flight the next day, and the person I was with was going to come back because she was going to pick up her brother or something. But the security was really angry. They talked to us and they were really mad because everybody was leaving in 5 minutes, and there was going to be one guy that was going to be there to like monitor the in and out of the park. And so it seemed like there had been like a lack of communication with security or something on behalf of Disney, because I would assume that's Disney's job to staff their security properly. Hopefully no one got out of hand like that. This time there was the fire alarm at the one party. Hopefully there were no like fights like there were. Was it at Legal Week?
That's right, to the Latera party. Supposedly got
as I told Bob, I think I'm going to quit showing up at parties with him, because every time something happens and everybody has to evacuate, I don't know what it is.
I think it's Nikki. It's not me.
Maybe it is. Yeah.
I would have blamed Joe.
But
yeah,
I was at a perfectly reasonable party. I don't know what you all were doing.
Yeah, you guys were at Dan O'Day's party, which Dan didn't invite us to, but fortunately he's not in the audience to take any.
Oh yeah, he is.
Oh, I'm kidding. I know he is. And he says he did, actually. Good. He claims he did. I checked my spam folder. So.
I will say I actually did. He says. I actually did go back and check, and I didn't have it. And I don't blame him. I think there was something wrong with the ways in which people were being told about these, because I had none of them. And it wasn't just. I searched my email and my spam. Right, and it wasn't just. My point is, it wasn't just him. I didn't have ones from a lot of these companies. I had to find out about them later. I think there might have been some kind of a weird screw up
the party source. He about knew every single one and was invited to all of them and had all the pictures done. He was the party animal.
We all managed to find him anyway. It wasn't a problem.
We did manage to find them. You're right. But I mean, all the ones I went to, I mean, there just was a lot of energy and people were talking, and even in the like public areas of the hotel. I mean, if you walk down there at 7 or 8 o'clock, it was packed, and it was mostly ILTA people, and people were engaged, and it was pretty cool to see. And like I said, I didn't see hardly anybody with masks on, except for maybe some of the people that worked for the hotel, and I didn't hear hardly any discussion of COVID. So that's good.
Yep, and what was I going to say about that, and now I forget what I was just about to say something about parties, and I lost my train of thought. Oh, I know what I was going to say. That just not about parties, but just generally, they sent out Beth Ann from ILTACON sent out a kind of a wrap email this morning saying this was officially the second largest ILTACON ever in terms of attendance, and the exhibit hall, as far as I was concerned, of exhibit halls I have been to since COVID, this is the one that I kind of felt the most like in good old fashioned exhibit hall with lots of, what was it, 158, I think, exhibitors there. I mean, I didn't like the fact that there was like this weird front and back section, and you could almost, it's another one of those instances where if you really weren't paying attention, you might even miss there was a whole back section of the exhibit hall. But it wasn't like they just delegated, the people who paid less or something to the back. I mean, some of the major vendors were in the back, and they had the startup hub back there, which was nice to see.
I like the fact that they had some open spaces in the exhibit hall where you could, with tables and chairs where you could go sit and meet with people and talk and rest your feet for a little bit and all of that. I thought that was a nice touch. And yeah, and having the startup alley, I don't remember them doing that before. Maybe they did,
I
but
think they did it the year before too.
Well, right. They did it in DC, but they put the room right next to where our press room was, which, as you recall, was nowhere near anything. And they had them give their pitch, and they had them give their pitches on like Thursday afternoon or something like that. So this was a much better version than the one before.
The goat lounge is awesome.
Sorry.
It was this lounge where you ring a bell and they give you a drink. They hand it out. That was really awesome.
It came out through the little things that looked like fake bushes, and this little hand would come out with the drink. Yeah.
One thing I learned that's apparently a little bit unique about ILTA and ILTACON is that if you are a sponsor for, like, you pay to sponsor their other publications or whatever for the year, you have to get a booth. That's like a requirement. So they're very smart about how they do everything in terms of that conference sort of being a moneymaker for them. Like, I don't know what happens if you don't get a booth. I don't really know what that looks like, but you're supposed to have a booth as part of your sponsorship. And it's not like you have the option. It's like, no, you have to come and have a booth. So I think it's interesting, but that may be why it was so full. And maybe in the past few years, they just gave people breaks because of COVID and it was optional.
Yeah. All right. Have we
And it seemed like
Seems
all the big players were there at the exhibit hall too. There wasn't any notable absences as there have been at some conferences.
So Matt says Nashville next year with an exclamation point, which I assume means he's happy about that. I'm not a fan of the Nashville. I'm assuming that's the Gaylord. I'm not a fan of
it's at the Gaylord. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
Of that
So
either.
therefore not Nashville.
But
are they even in the same state?
Nashville for Clea.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, no, we're going to be at the Gaylord again. Like, again, the Gaylord is not Nashville as far as I can tell.
Right. You're right. Yeah. All right. Anything else on CleoCon? I mean, CleoCon. ILTACON.
No, that's next, Bob.
CleoCon's next. Not next. There's a whole bunch of.
No, this is a couple of, yeah. Right.
We got a few. I saw this news item, and I feel like we have to take a moment of silence to recognize the passing of the inventor of the PDF, John Warnock, who died at 82 years of age yesterday. I feel like, where would the legal profession be without the PDF? And the improperly redacted PDF, more specifically. I hope they're going to note someday there will be an obituary for the first lawyer to improperly redact a PDF. All right.
Or maybe the last lawyer.
Maybe the last. Anything else anybody wants to talk about? Gone. All right. Well, thanks to everybody for this. It was good seeing all of you and a bunch of people in the chat here at the conference last week, and see you next stop on the conference circuit. We'll be back here next week, warming up to our 100th episode. See y'all. Have a good weekend.
Have a good week, everybody.